We are going to follow the money.
Everything you need to know can be understood with this simple phrase: follow the money. And believe me, that's what's happening.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Welcome to College Sports Follow the Money, an all-new podcast diving into the critical issues surrounding the big business of college sports. I'm Andrew Monaco, joined by former president of Texas A&M University and former chancellor at the University of Missouri, Dr. Bowen Loftin, and former vice president and general manager of Fox Sports Southwest, Jon Heidtke. From NIL to the transfer portal and opt-outs, to the college football playoff, conference realignment, and more, we tackle the key issues facing college athletics today and into the future.
I need to feel you, Jerry! Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money! Show me the money! You loudest black man!
We welcome you to another edition of College Sports Follow the Money. I'm Andrew Monaco with Jon Heidtke, with Dr. Bowen Loftin, and I have to say right off the bat that it did not take an executive order by the president to get the three of us back together. Although that's where it was approaching that for a while. It's been a while. It's wonderful to see you both.
Well, I've heard you, sir. I've heard you more than I've seen you lately.
That's how some people prefer it. Although they'd also like to not hear me as well.
No.
We go through the time. Like, this is what I love about this show. There's always something to talk about. And we've joked about this in the past. We can't solve all the problems because then our podcast goes away. But what a time of year. Like, this is a special time of year, right? You have March Madness for the men and the women. You have the Masters that just wrapped up. You have baseball that gets started, Major League Baseball that gets started. In college, you had overlap season. It's just a wonderful time, and we never seem to lose any of the storylines that we need so we can get together and talk.
Very good, Andrew. I mean, I spent all the time yesterday at the ballpark. I was there Friday and Saturday. I was there much of Sunday as well, waiting for the rain and lightning to go away. They did not, unfortunately, so we could not have our third game. But it was an extraordinary atmosphere, even though this is a money game, not necessarily a X's and O's game we play here on this particular podcast. It was good to see what happened at Olsen Field at Bluebell Park over the last few days.
Yeah, certainly a lot of fun. Jon, you've been busy? I say that with tongue planted firmly in cheek, and we're going to get to not just some of the topics, but the things that are going on. You always talk streaming and ratings. We get to that. Not just the college being the programming now, right? It's the best programming for any streaming service or a network. And that world is certainly changing, is it not?
It is. One of the interesting things, you talked about March Madness, is that the ratings the other day were pretty solid for it. I think that they were high for the men's and the women's too. But the game was one of the rare occasions where the championship game was on TBS, which is predominantly a cable channel. It's not ESPN, it's not NBC, it's not CBS. So there was a lot of thought in the industry that game would probably not generate the ratings that a game on, a CBS or one of your legacy linear over-the-air networks. But again, with some of the Nielsen changes that they've made, the ratings were very solid. I think it was the highest one in the last 10 or something years. But the interesting stat to me on all this was, we talk streaming, all right? Last year's Super Bowl, biggest event, most watched event in the entire country. About 10% of their audience is streaming. Tubi was, or the different streamers out there, Peacock, et cetera, when they have the games, and about 10%. But I saw a stat from the this Final Four, less than 3 months from the Super Bowl, and guess how much of the people what percentage streamers tuned in to the Final Four for the men's telecast? You want to make a guess?
My number would be kind of low, but do I have to start adjusting my thought process now?
Well, my guess would have been probably 10, maybe 15, 20%. I thought max, because it was probably on HBO Max, pardon the pun. But it was over 50% of the audience was streaming, which amazed me.
Wow.
That you see that big of a difference on people who consume this content within a 3-month period from the Super Bowl. Now, I think you can maybe put is that much of it tied to the cable linear bundle conversation that people are involved, that audience has completely found the streaming environment, even though the overall numbers were still pretty high, but over 50% were watched that content on streaming, which I found incredibly strong considered, where we are. And I think it just can continue to show the acceleration of where our viewership is going and how important that streaming mechanism is now for a lot of fans to consume their content, particularly live sports.
Feels like a watershed moment, John.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised it hasn't got much more, much more publicity yet. But I think people are going to start to look at that number and say, "Holy cow, that is incredible!" That streaming number was over 50% for that 18, 19, 20 million people that tuned in for the game this week. Now, think about that too. Is who all those people are? They've signed up, they've registered,
Right.
know exactly who they are and how to market them. So if I'm the NCAA, that's a huge number for me now because I can tackle that number and roll that into other things that I'm doing to promote my NCAA championship, sell tickets, sell merchandise, etc. So that those data points are critically important. And the fact that already 50% of that audience now, you have that data on those viewers, to me, is another incredible data point that, again, we'll see how well the NCAA uses it over the next 6, 8, 12 months to market next year's, Final Four. But I thought, again, to me, that number blew me away.
Yeah, I was thinking I was thinking in my mind 20%, and that was high. But I was thinking as the world changes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's growing, but to go from 10 for the Super Bowl to over 50 for the men's Final Four, incredible turnabout in terms of where the viewership is headed.
And that means that viewership habits are changing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So now,
Does it also
again,
mean it skews younger?
Yeah, it does skew younger. Now, if I'm a rights holder too, and I'm looking at the world right now, I'm salivating to think because now all the streamers are seeing that number too. And if they're looking at that, live sports can really help them grow that ad sales portion of their business models. That makes that content even more valuable. So as I sit there and look at upcoming TV rights deals, I'm pretty happy to be on the content provider side.
Does it make it more important now for the NBCs who have the Peacock, the CBSs who has the Paramount Plus, CBS and Turner thinking of getting together? Does it make it a little more important for the networks because they now have that service? And then the competition of the other streaming services should drive rights up, should it not?
Should be exactly what it should do because again, it's live content. That's the only where people can watch that. Particularly now, streamers now are starting to develop their revenue stream in ad sales. If you have a streaming contest now, Netflix will say, "Hey, take the ad-supported version, and we'll save you a couple of bucks." Hulu has an ad-supported version. All of them now are moving to that ad-supported version model because it's a little cheaper for consumers to subscribe to. But at the end of the day, the advertising now dollars are starting to follow viewership into the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
Like right now, if you looked at, again, if you're looking at, other networks out there, even on ESPN, if you're watching a streaming event, you'll see that little Zen thing come out or,
Right.
We're in a break right now. So they're not even utilizing that advertising yet, but people are starting to go that way. And again, if 53% of the marketplace watched on streaming, I guarantee you 2% of the advertisers were on that. All of that money was going into the cable side of it. So it's interesting to see that, again, now if I'm an advertiser, I've really got to take notice of this too and make sure that my advertising buys are more structured to meet the demands on the streaming side. And if ESPN's not putting my spot in streaming, I want to make sure that they do. So I think, again, it's going to open up new revenue opportunities there as well.
Does it put a little more focus and emphasis? Netflix got crushed for its opening night baseball. Is quality of product going to run into this as well? Not like they don't have the right people in the production, but Netflix was very negative, similar to how CBS's coverage of the Masters at the end of Sunday was very, very negative. Is it because, you also have March Madness and the production that you're getting? I'm just wondering if also part of that watershed moment is we can't have Netflix treating this like just a Netflix ad for 9 innings.
Yeah, and again, I did not see the Netflix game. The numbers were pretty solid. It was like the 3.5 million, better than what they would have done last year on opening day. So it showed me that, again, that audience found that telecast. I didn't see it. But I think, again, some of the streamers, I mean, one of the things that they're capable of, particularly wanting to put more data into the telecast. And so sometimes that might overwhelm some fans too if they're not used to it. How do these people, again, if you talk, I didn't see the Masters either, I should have, but they had the first opening rounds on Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime put a lot of bells and whistles into that. So there were undulation of shots, and they're able to overlay a lot of the data analytics that they have. And I'm curious to see, sometimes that overwhelms the viewer.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, in today's age, if somebody doesn't like something, it's quickly how it spreads like wildfire.
Right.
If someone puts a post and everybody starts liking it. So,
Yeah.
I think some of those things may be overstated in that world. But again, if it's different, some people just don't like to see changes, and sometimes that could affect it as well. But
Does it help retention as well for these streaming services?
Oh,
As opposed
absolutely.
to just signing up and getting rid of and not having.
Well, Peacock shared their note when they had their first playoff game. They added about, they were able to, they added roughly, I think, 3 or 4 million new viewers. All right. And so who downloaded it just to watch that game. But over the course of the next 90 days, 40% of those were still signed up. So that shows that Peacock, they had found something that they liked, a show, a series, whatever. So they were staying with the process there. And I think the streamers are trying to figure out ways to reduce that churn element in their business plan. And again, being able to add live sports, which is sort of a franchise and season long, you're going to stay with it for a longer period of time. And if you're Peacock now, by virtue of their NBC relationship, you have access to content from a year round on a sports standpoint. So I think Peacock is trying to figure that, thread that needle well. Certainly ESPN's doing it. And I think Netflix looking for those big events to jump in and, opening day and some of the other things that they're involved with. So again, it's changing. And I think, again, I was just surprised how quickly that number went over 50% for a major marquee event like that.
I'm with you. Dr. Loftin, one season, it's always season. That's 12 months a year is coaching season. and we've had some doozies, haven't we, in college basketball? Michael Malone, the former NBA head coach and the son of a longtime NBA assistant, and women's basketball, not just men's basketball, women's basketball. And you're finding the contracts fascinating, aren't you?
I am. Before we leave the other topic, I want to just say one thing. I was in a certain bar a long time this weekend as I was waiting for rain to go away and lightning to go away. I won't name a bar right now necessarily, but I was stunned with the attention paid to the Masters. So I'd say 80% of those in the club I was in, Sunday especially, with a long gap of weather there, were watching the Masters and watching what happened at the end of the game. Basically, it was a good data point for you, Jon Heidtke, to be able to look at that and see.
Again,
micro.
I've been saying this for forever, but sports is the last or the ultimate reality television. What Rory went through, the roller coaster that he went through on Sunday, was incredible. 6-shot lead on going in, falling 2 shots behind, and still coming back out to win with Justin Rose right on his tail. And here comes Scheffler. I mean, the kid's he hits the shot on 18 into the pine straws. I mean, the guy, he has a flair for the dramatics that I've never seen. Tiger would crush you. He would just go win by 20 strokes. Rory gets up and then he lets you back in, and it's an adventure. I mean, again, you hate to use the term must-see TV, but to watch the kind of the emotional up and down that these guys go through, it's incredible. Again, just like sports, games when you see, you can't script it. I mean, it's incredible. But I think, again, I haven't seen the Masters numbers yet, but they've got to be tremendous.
I think so.
This year will be. Well, guys, back to college sports. Follow the money. Okay, I've been following the money a lot lately. As we all know, every year as we get past the tournament, we have this period of time, this short period of time, when coaching contracts for basketball coaches, both men's and women's, are in the forefront. But it's changed. It's changed. A couple of things. April 7th was the opening of the portal, for the basketball world. And so that gives you a sense right there of what was going on as the season ends. Coaching contracts are being renegotiated and the portal opens, and we have all the issues newly created in terms of how we attract players to our program. It's not just the hiring of the coach, but the timing of the hiring of the coach has to permit that coach, if he or she is new to their particular school especially, to be able to get to the portal as it opens up and begin to work with the prospects they see there. So that wasn't the case in the past that much at all. We've always had this season when we got through the tournament and we saw coaching contracts in turmoil, and that's been the case now. Now, I can't give you all the data because some of it's not public. The private schools don't tell you anything. You got to kind of ask around and listen carefully over a period of time to figure that one out. But even publics have to go through boards and things like that. I think the contracts are largely done, but not all the boards have met. Not all the votes have been taken to finalize them and force them to be made public, of course, as we get into it. But I'll say a few things about this. As you mentioned in your comments, Andrew, Mike Malone has kind of taken a lot of attention from others just recently. UNC needing a coach. They're a blue blood, no question about it. They're a school that has a long history in this particular area. We expected things to happen here. There was lots of speculation. I mean, I've never seen so many coaches' names being thrown around for a while there. But ultimately, Mike Malone emerged, a longtime professional assistant and head coach, very successful guy. And I think he's setting the new benchmark for men's basketball coaching contracts right now. His contract, which is now public, was for 6 years, $50 million over 6 years, starting at $7.5 million in year one, going to $9 million in the sixth year. Obviously, during that period of time, probably around year four, it'll be renegotiated and things like that as usual, but that gives you a marker. And so he's at the top of the heap right now in terms of coaches, although not by himself exactly. There's friends around him right now. But I was really interested in that one. Only Bill Self is more highly paid right now than Mike Malone under the terms of his new contract, his current contract. So that to me is interesting. Bill hasn't had the most luck lately, so we'll see how this plays out for him. But having been in Missouri for a while and dealing with Mr. Self, I have many opinions about him, which aren't always publishable. Okay, we'll just say it that way. But anyway, I think but looking beyond just the upper numbers here in Malone's contract, there's a bonus piece of it that can be annually up to 1.5 million roughly annually, bonus beyond the actual guaranteed part of the contract there. And that to me is a very nice cushion on top of what he's already getting right now. For example, he gets $100K for the ACC regular season. He gets $100K for the ACC tournament. Those things are all in there. But then look beyond the numbers for him. 6.75 million guaranteed in the amount of revenue sharing UNC provides to its players. So almost $7 million is made available to him to compensate players with from the university itself. That's not talking about NIL. That's the revenue sharing part of the scheme right here. And that's in the contract. That's something brand new now. We haven't seen that before because the House ruling is pretty new yet, and we haven't had a lot of history with it. So people are now writing into the contracts the amount of money of revenue sharing that will come from the university to the program in question, okay? Number two, rumors suggest, data suggests, it's hard to get all the details here, that about 16 million went to the players at UNC during the most recent season, okay? 25-26, we saw about 16 million most likely going to UNC's men's basketball players. A combination of revenue sharing and also, of course, NIL. That gives you a sense of how much money is flowing around here for men's basketball there. And so we're talking now, besides his almost 7 million number written into the contract revenue sharing, we're talking of another 10 million, at least, maybe 12 on top of that. That's NIL money.
Yeah.
That's real change. And that's approaching what Power 4 football teams, and that's a lot more players. You got 15 players for basketball.
A lot more.
Think about that. So the price per player in college basketball is becoming the number one thing out there compared to any other sport. Even though the numbers may be a little larger for football, there are a lot more people sharing. And that tells you something about the popularity of the sport. It speaks to what John said about the revenue issues here. The NCAA tournament is a real cash cow for that organization. And that's not going to go away. It may get even larger as a cash cow if they can exploit the data, as you said, John, that they actually have in hand right now. Anyway,
I may have missed it, Dr. Loftin. Was there any bonus for graduation rates?
I haven't seen it spelled out specifically. The implication is there should be some in there for that purpose, but I haven't seen it written out in the contract yet. I've looked at the contract. I should say the pieces of the contract I've been looking at my hands on. I haven't seen the entire thing in one document, but I haven't seen that specifically laid out as a number yet. There's certainly lip service to it in there, but not as a number. What I find also interesting is in his contract is $4 million minimum guaranteed for salary for his assistants.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a lot of money going to the head coach, not just base salary and the usual kind of media stuff, but also the bonuses. Almost $1.5 million in bonuses per year added on top of his $7.5 to $9 million per year salary, and then you've got $4 million per year added on for him to div out to the staff he's assembling right there, and then you've got maybe as much as 15 to 20 million he'll be divvying up for the players themselves. That's some real dollars, in my opinion, guys. And
You've forgotten about the previous staff that North Carolina has to pay.
You're paying off those people.
Yes,
too.
you are.
So,
yeah.
But I think UNC felt very strongly about a couple of things. They felt that, given their history, they had to make a big effort on this particular contract.
Right.
Belichick has been a curse and a blessing both to them. And it's obvious this contract had a lot of connectivity to the Bill Belichick contract. It looks a lot like it when you look at his contract versus this one. So they've now adopted as a university. UNC's adopted, I think, a model that they went to two pros, one in football, one in basketball, and the contracts, even though they're separated in time, are somewhat similar. And I think that's interesting to see how that's playing out right there. I can't say other schools will jump on, and your comments about that are certainly encouraged. But I think that's interesting right there.
I think you're going to see more.
Oh, go ahead. The buyout, by the way, is a paltry $8 million in the first year. There are higher buyouts, interestingly, out there in some of the new contracts that are out. I've seen one as high as $11 million for the first year. But the buyouts is $8 million. It decreases by $1.5 million each year. Yeah. And I figure, again, in 4 years in, there's going to be a renewal if the guy is successful by most measures anyway. But it gives you a sense of what's going on right now. We'll talk about the players perhaps later on in the conversation here, but moving over to the women's basketball area right now, I was interested in trying to find out what Corey Close is going to get. She took a team which had not been competitive at that level before and moved them all the way through the cycle. Now, she's been successful by most measures at UCLA for a while. She's not a young head coach by any means. And this time she was able to take her team all the way to the very end of the process in the Final Four and a national championship. Her salary, I just can't get my hands on. The contract, I believe, is in place, but not yet approved by the board at UCLA. Therefore, they're using that caveat to say we can't share it with you yet. Her old contract was good by the standards of the day, but by no means competitive with the top coaches today. Last 23-24 season is when her last contract year was before the current one. $775K was her salary, $170. On top of that were her maximum bonuses, $100K a retention payment as well. So she was making, around $900 to $1 million per year is what she was making in her role right there. But that sort of pales compared to what you're seeing in some of the other coaches that are out there, namely Dawn Staley, for example, Vic Schaefer, people like that who are making the top numbers within women's basketball today. So once this gets public, we'll see how she was able to cash in on her success this year. But I find it interesting that at the very end of her process in this particular season, more than once she spoke to reporters talking about the fact this was the hardest she's ever worked in her life. And she was talking about the work she had to do with the portal, NIL, and how much extra burden it was on her as a coach. She wasn't just coaching a team. She was trying to both attract and retain the best players she could.
She's got to retain her own players every day.
Yeah, and that was consuming.
That's the biggest change in coaching.
A huge amount of her effort right here.
Yeah.
And she hinted to the fact she may be hanging it up. She has said,
really,
she's not sure she can continue coaching the way things are today. And she specifically cited NIL,
Jay Wright,
portal.
Tony Bennett, Jim Larinaga. Yeah, there's a reason why these guys got out.
You understand very well that right now.
Yeah, you know what I thought was really interesting in this offseason and coaching change? That Christy Curry leaves Alabama for South Florida. Now the schools have to understand, whether you're in the SEC or not, how much are you going to put into a program, or a successful coach like her shifts to South Florida is not the same as Alabama when you think about it, but are they putting more resources in? Does that become now attractive?
Well, South Florida over the last decade has clearly declared itself to be a big player. I mean, they've gotten to the AAU. They've really promoted their sports. They put money into it. They have been working very hard as a university, which didn't get a lot of respect for a long time, to move themselves into competitive positions against the very best schools we've seen nationally in some of the sports. And so I think that's just something that university's leadership has clearly committed to right now. It's not uniform, but look what they've done. Not just athletically, but also academically, to make themselves a major player.
I never knew that they were the AAU school in Florida.
They've just gotten that level.
That's impressive.
Very recently.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, only one school held that. That was University of Florida at Gainesville.
Yeah.
And about almost 2 years ago now, South Florida was admitted to that over all the others within Florida that were obviously liking to do that sort of thing. They were the ones that were picked. So they poured money into research. They poured money into faculty hiring. They've done all the right things. They looked at the playbook. They saw the AAU playbook. They said, we have to buy our way into this, and they did. And they've done it in sports. They've done it academically, which I find that interesting that they've been able to do both of those things, which I haven't really seen.
That doesn't always play. They don't always play well together, right?
Exactly.
Hey everyone, David Nuno here of TexAgs Live. I want to introduce you to the team at Holistic Planning. Got Jason Barber here, Taylor Pankratz, and also Paul Meredith. Jason, I want to start off with you. What really sets Holistic Planning apart from the others?
Yeah, so what makes us different is most financial advisors stop at investment management. On the other hand, Holistic Planning, we manage investments, taxes, and estate planning all on one team, all underneath one roof.
Now, Taylor, when everything is coordinated like that, it really helps the bottom line, doesn't it?
It really does. When your investments and taxes are working together, you stop leaving money on the table and keep more of what's yours.
Paul, Holistic Planning is trying to expand as well.
That's true. We just opened our Houston office, and we're looking for people who feel like their advisor isn't seeing the full picture, because that's exactly what we fix.
And Jason, there's other opportunities beyond that.
Definitely. If you're a financial advisor and you want to join the Holistic Planning team, we're looking to add 50 teams in the next 5 to 10 years. So check out holisticplanning.com/advisors.
All right, so if you want a team that actually coordinates everything, go to holisticplanning.com. Aggies, this one is worth it.
But to finish up the issues here, I mean, Dawn Staley is the top of the heap in terms of women's basketball coaching. Her current contract, extended just last year, is $4.25 million per year base salary, plus $250K per year in terms of bonuses, incentives going into the top of that, basically. And then she has incentivations of around $340K a year on top of those. So she's pulling down well over $5 million per year, is my point to you right now as a women's basketball coach, which is making her very competitive with some of the top dogs in the men's world. So what I find interesting, Andrew and John, is that women's basketball is beginning to emerge, not at the same level in terms of number of teams, but the top teams are beginning to be looking much like the top teams in men's basketball right now, which has never been the case before. Gino, 5-year contract, just signed in 2024 as well. We're talking there 18.7 million is his 5-year contract numbers. He has a base salary. He has incentivization, media stuff, things like that in there as well. Vic Schaefer comes in at 2.3 million. He got a 3-year extension last year, pretty recently anyway. So these are kind of the top dogs right now in that particular world. The question is, will Corey Close come into that particular category or not, or will she decide to hang it up? I was just stunned when I began to hear her talking to reporters about how she probably can't do this much longer. And that wasn't what I expected. Normally, when you're the top of the heap, when you win the national championship, you aren't talking about retiring.
It's supposed to get easier,
like
right?
that.
It's supposed to get easier.
Well,
The days of Mac Brown saying
it.
you win a national championship and you've got 5 years, that's gone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
think
think
it's interesting to see all that.
The interesting thing about the UCLA deal was I don't think UCLA is not one of those blue bloods that you expect to see in women's basketball. I mean, you can take 4 schools and pretty much, Texas, UConn, maybe LSU, who else was in there? I mean, Southern Cal if they're healthy. I mean, UCLA hasn't been there. She had all of her points were scored by seniors. So trying to your point, keep that roster together that year, not get them, picked off by somebody else, and then win a championship. And what she says, my guess you're not going to see her on the sidelines next year.
I think that's why I'm guessing that's the case, Joe. I just think she's already set the stage for this.
I don't think they can compete with South Carolina, UConn, Texas, LSU,
not long term.
Some of the other programs.
Not long term. She had a sweet spot right here in terms of her accessibility, and I'm not sure it'll be repeated for UCLA anytime soon. I've also looked at other men's coaches out there, Tommy Lloyd, Mark Byington, Nate Oates. Those are guys who are out there right now. Some of their contract data is available right now. Most is not, because Vanderbilt does not publish anything. They're a private school, obviously, so you got to kind of guess what Mark's getting right there. But Tommy and Nate have pieces of theirs out there. They're waiting for board approval both at Arizona and Alabama right now, so we can't see the final terms of it there. But it's looking like, in the case of Tommy Lloyd at Arizona, he signed a contract just this month, just a few days ago, quite frankly. And we're talking about a 7.5 million average through 2030, 2031, 32. We're talking about $11 million buyout. Think about that. That's the biggest buyout I've seen so far, is $11 million in the first year. Now, it goes down pretty rapidly, but that's a huge way to keep him home in terms of paying that much money, well above his salary, to be able to keep him there if somebody tries to poach him out of there. Vanderbilt's numbers aren't known to me yet. The buyout is also about $11 million, though, pretty close to what Tommy Lloyd's is. Nate's average, Nate Oates, is about $7.75 million per year for the next few years and up. Signed again this month, just a few days ago. So Alabama's clearly buying into him and saying, we're going to make this guy stay here as our head coach. So I think the basketball world is seeing a continual rise, and a slope is pretty steep to me for the growth of coaches' salaries there. We've seen it for a long time in the football world. It's now emerging very clearly in the basketball world as well, guys.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina opens and Arizona has to re-up their head coach. So Tommy Lloyd and Nate Oates and Mark Byington and Dusty May all made out because Carolina's job opened, right?
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
Yeah, that's the ripple effect. Yeah.
But one thing about this, I would say, Andrew, and I think Dr. Loft, you would agree, I just wanted to welcome our new sponsor to the network, or to follow the money, Holistic Planning and Jason Barber.
It's a perfect segue.
we need to make sure we connect those guys with Jason so they can quit tipping the IRS. I mean, that's certainly one of Holistic Planning strengths, among other things. But wow, the money that these guys are making, certainly having someone make sure that you're not giving the IRS more than they're due is something that Jason and his crew loves to work on.
Well, John, this is April 13th today. We're doing this recording on, okay?
That's right.
In 2 days, I've got to write a check, okay? Just keep in mind that's coming up here, okay?
The IRS.
Yeah, I don't want to tip them either.
I think you are
pretty hard
Jason
not
and
to
his
tip
boys
the
a call.
IRS. And we appreciate a sponsor that has the same philosophy we all share, guys.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. Welcome. John, through much of It's a topic that you had passed along through much of what's going on with the NCAA. To me, there is a void of leadership, but that might be changing with Georgia's president, correct?
Yeah, it seems like, nobody's really said a lot in that world, but here's a president coming out and kind of taking the charge. Jerry Moorhead from the University of Georgia. I don't know the person. I'm sure Dr. Loftin's probably
I
interacted
do
with
know
him over the years and would love to get your thoughts on him. But he is kind of coming up there and saying, hey, we need to figure this out. And if you can't figure it out, maybe we as the SEC figure it out and we put our own set of rules to try to, rein in some of this craziness.
Yeah, I thought that Jerry was, well, let me back a little. Jerry's predecessor was Mike Adams. Mike was a longtime president of Georgia, and Jerry's a very longtime president of Georgia now. But Mike kind of got famous because he fired a certain football coach that we all remember well. And that caused all kinds of issues. He barely kept his job over that particular firing anyway. And I was there shortly after that happened and began to deal with some of the aftermath of that firing. But after Mike decided to retire, and by the way, Mike was very involved with the SEC board at the moment Texas A&M joined the SEC. And famously, Ken Starr called Mike Adams's cell phone as they were meeting as a board to admit A&M into the SEC and threatened him with a lawsuit against the SEC if A&M were admitted. And he got that voicemail during the meeting, conveyed it to the board, and they decided to back off on admitting Texas A&M. The chairman of the board at that time, with Bernie Matchin from Florida, and Commissioner Mike Slive called me at that point and told me it wasn't going to happen that night. I was sitting in my living room with several board members waiting for a call saying we were in, and I got the call saying we weren't in. And I was pretty inconsolable for a while, gentlemen. It was pretty hard. And I credit Jim Wilson for peeling me off the ceiling and keeping me a little bit under control that particular evening anyway. We'd worked so hard for so long to get to a certain place, and it didn't happen as I thought it would. And it was a few weeks later we actually got admitted to the SEC once we got things. But it was actually the call from Ken Starr to Jerry that to Mike Adams that made this happen. So Mike retires, Jerry takes over. Jerry was a law school dean there. Arts and Sciences was where he was also. He rose through the ranks there at Georgia over a period of time, and he's been president now quite some time. But in knowing him as I did, he was always extremely interested, as was his predecessor Mike Adams, in sports. But I'll remind you that Jerry is a lawyer. First of all, he's a lawyer trained in law. He pays attention to very great detail, and much more than I think other people at that level oftentimes are able to. And so he has survived at Georgia through some pretty tumultuous internal times there, and he's been able to cement himself at the university well. But in addition to that, he has become, and was even in my time there, a very, very loud voice and a very successful voice among leadership of the SEC. And now he's moving to an even higher level in terms of influencing, I think, things at the national level with sports. And I think the guy is smart. I think the guy is extremely focused on sports, among other things, but sports is what he really likes to do. And he's able to get where he wants to go by being intelligent, articulate, and focused. And those three things are extremely good attributes for the kind of job he's doing right now.
No, and I think it's important that somebody in that world steps up and speaks out. And I think, again, in this lack of, executive orders and conference commissioners and CSC issues that we're dealing with, everybody's saying we have a problem, but no one's really saying here, how do we fix it? I think, again, he's throwing he's throwing some things to talk about out on the table.
Yeah, he is. And oddly, my Big 12 days, Harvey Perlman, the Nebraska chancellor, was sort of the sports guy there. Harvey was a track guy back in college, and so he was an athlete himself. Jerry was not. Jerry has like me, he has no athletic history at the college level that I'm aware of anyway, and I don't either. And but yet Harvey did, and so Harvey was kind of by default the guy who was the Big 12 rep for NCAA matters and national matters as well for the sporting world. And so that's the kind of model I saw. Then I moved over to the SEC and I saw how Jerry became so influential there very rapidly. And that was a different kind of guy. And I think Harvey was smart too, but not quite the level that Jerry is. And so I think Jerry is an extremely effective guy. And I'm glad he's taking a leadership role right now. And I think we're all the better for it. He pays attention again to the things that matter to the universities themselves. Georgia is not unique. It's a big school, a great school. It's not unique, though. There are many like them out there. And he, I think, understands that world very well and will carry the messages from the university level leadership to the right places at the national level.
Again, I think there's a void because there's a ton of issues, as you've all said. The joke at the top was not really a joke. The president having an executive order, it shouldn't have to come to that. But I know college is looking towards the federal government to solve their problems. One that's going to hit very soon, even more. John, you brought this one up as well, that college athletes are ignoring the college gambling laws. And it just seems like this is another something that can snowball. It's the same way I feel, not the same issue. But when John Calipari talked about NIL money, he said the worst thing is not being poor. The worst thing is being poor, having money, and then being poor again. That's something that I think is going to come down the line. With the gambling issue and being a vice, this is something that could plague college athletics.
And we've already seen it to a degree. I mean, when it first happened, you saw what happened at Iowa State a couple of years ago. And I think, again, these kids just have grown up in an environment between fantasy sports and now legalized gambling in 38 of our states, that it's going to happen. I mean, we even saw the Alabama baseball coach get fired for it over a couple of years ago. So when your coach is doing it, you can only imagine that, it trickles on down there. And you hear the stories, I mean, about the guys that the new fraternity guy has to go in and find out the best parlays for the guys to bet on that week. And again, it's just common nomenclature right now for these guys. And so as it molds into this place, we've seen it happen at Major League Baseball. I mean, all the levels are worried about what it's doing. But I do think, again, we have more opportunity for abuse and for people who are doing it at the collegiate level right now. And if you look at some of the research that, one of the things on problem gambling was that, if you look at somebody who has placed a bet over 55, like 11% of the people our age have placed a bet. When you get down into the college student age, it's 75%. So if you look at that, that's not just guys, that's guys and girls, betting. You see different reasons for them saying, hey, I need to supplement my income. It's fun. The adrenaline rush of a win. They've played fantasy sports all their life. To them, this is just a kind of, they don't really distinguish that between I don't think the negativity of what gambling can do on that side. And it's just been interesting now between what you're seeing, that this more and more of the college athletes are doing it. And I think, again, there will be, it's not if, it's when there's a high profile school that's going to see, be caught up in a significant issue with this process right now.
And in the past, it was always the bookies who were the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And back in the day, it was kind of gambling was in the dark, but now it's like it's an accepted, but people do it. No one seems to care. Yeah. But I do think, again, that just are seeing more and more of these stories here that are popping up right now of college age students, not just the athletes, but college age students too, who have gambled on something within the past week to a month. So I just think that's something that, again, the NCAA is looking into it. I think you're going to see, again, it's happened at all the professional levels, and my guess is it's only going to be another matter of time before, and particularly in the lower level sports where these kids aren't making all that money, the baseball, softball, some of the more Olympic sports. I think you're going to see some more of that too. And then again, you're sitting a guy, you don't have all the NIL money. You're sitting at practice. You see your star running back's not going to play next week. You go, what? No one knows this yet. How does this work? And again, who's to say that's something like that's not going to happen in this sport? So it is something that I think, again, that once another high profile situation pops up, again, how does the NCAA, how do schools in themselves try to police that, and again educate their students, athletes on that situation too? Yeah. So I mean, Neuheisel got fired over it for playing an NCAA pool back in the day, so that's crazy what's happening out there.
Yeah.
There's a glimmer, guys, of hope here, I think, though, I want to bring up for you, if you will. I've been looking at some of the individual players in basketball, and in some cases, those players make more than the head coach does. Think about that a minute. That the player makes more than the head coach does now. That's
Well, I mean, that was the
interesting.
skill with the NFL. I mean, at the professional level, was they were worried about it, but they think who's going to be dumb enough to risk their career to make a stupid bet when they're getting paid this kind of money? But inevitably, it happens. And again,
One player stands out, though. Latrell Wrightsell Jr., who's the Alabama senior guard. He started out at Cal State Fullerton, you may remember, and has really been a dominant player at Alabama now over the last year. He's making a lot of money right now, Alabama, but he's actually been very vocal about the need for young men and women to not simply buy the fancy ding-dangs, the car, the Lamborghini, the fashion gear and so on like that somebody might pick up as well at high cost, but to invest. He actually asks players who he interacts with, are you investing? Are you buying stocks and bonds? Are you doing things with your money that last beyond the moment you're in right here? And that's interesting. The guy, he's a senior guy. He's not young. He's in his early 20s now, but this guy has really not only taken care of himself, but he looks around him and he talks to players in his team and teams they compete with when he interacts with them. He says, what are you doing with your money? I know you're making this much money out there. And by the way, there are now teams where the rules of the team prohibit the player discussing with their teammates or others their compensation. Now, how well is that going to work? Not well is my point. Yeah. And so it gets around right away in a team and beyond a team how much each person is getting from the revenue sharing NIL sources they have. But Latrell's actually taking the initiative and saying, I want to be able to tell people you need to analyze what you're doing and recognize you're in here for the long game. In the NBA, what's it, 1%, Andrew, get into the NBA?
Yeah.
College? About 1%?
It might even be less than that.
So it's some very tiny fraction. Okay?
Yes, it is.
So here you're making a few million right now, or maybe several million right now as a player because you're darn good. But if you don't get that first, second round pick, if you don't make it work in the NBA, the money's gone in terms of income.
Right.
What do you have left is the question.
Right. And if you're not playing, what's your next salary going to be? Because it's not going to be your NIL salary.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to be close.
That's what the kids have to wake up to do. So gambling is a part of it, John. I agree with that. It's a terrible part of it. Gambling is very addictive. We know that very, very much from research and history. And there's Gamblers Anonymous out there who helps you get through these things. But these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and they're starting their process of gambling far earlier than my generation probably did. And that is a concern to me if they don't have somebody that they respect and listen to and help them do the right decision making today that keeps them off the rolls tomorrow of those who have nothing left.
Yeah. John, you make an interesting point that they have grown up with it, surrounded by it. That's what's really intriguing about it. And then you see Giannis Antetokounmpo is now with Kalshi. Oh, well, if he's doing it, then it's got it. Not so much aligning with it, but there's Bet365 and we've got Kevin Hart with it. Oh, and don't gamble. Like, it's very much a mixed message, but it's very much been part of, as you say, they have been surrounded by it. And it's not something new where we as older going, wow, we know the pitfalls. When you've been around it, I don't think you know the severity or how severe it can be.
No, and with the algorithms now, again, if these kids have been playing fantasy sports forever, now it's back in the day, it said, if you pick this thing to happen, who hits a home run tonight, win a thing. That wasn't really considered gambling. That was sports contest, but you were, it was bringing you into that world. And so if they find out, again, through the algorithms, if they know that your favorite team is X, Y, and Z, hey, they serve you things up that just lead you down that road. Hey, I know this stuff. I know enough inside that I'm going to be able to understand who's going to get a hit tonight and who's pitching, and here's the matchups. And they use all that stuff and think they can outsmart the system, and they can't. The other interesting thing, too, is that, the parlays, when you do a 3-team parlay, these kids love hitting parlays, and that's the most addictive one out there. And that's the houses, all the odds for the house on that. That's giving money away at the end of the day.
Isn't it interesting? You started by saying, how will they use the numbers from March Madness? And you're looking at the betting side, they're going to use the numbers as well for their quote unquote clients.
I mean, data's good and bad, depending on how you use it. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great for the gambling companies, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
They can tee it up and get you to do things that you didn't think you should do. Just like, again, if you go to Prime, before you know what you went to buy one item, you end up buying 10. Same kind of principle.
Because I can get free shipping. Right? That free shipping. Wait, if I just get something else, yeah. It's all over. John, we had talked to streaming, and we talked about obviously with contracts and becoming partnerships with leagues. But interesting, skewing out of the college football, and I want to get to the college football rankings in just a little bit. But the other thing you brought was now the NFL TV deals are going to be under some scrutiny.
Well, there's some federal, some legislative pressure coming on them right now because their constituents are complaining now about how much it costs you to watch NFL games. And NFL was the first part of it, and it was tied in with the Sunday ticket. And now, what they're afraid of, and some of this is being put out by the leagues too, the broadcast networks who are saying, hey, you're asking the NFL, we want to pay more and we need it, we get it, it's probably worth more, but how much worth more is it? And if we all have to move it to streaming now, does that end up hurting the rank and file, consumer who wants to watch? And if they have to pay additional things to watch these games that the Sports Broadcasting Act was designed to put on free over-the-air television back in the day. And free over-the-air television has changed a lot since 1961. You could probably argue there's really not any free over-the-air television because you've got to have cable or antenna or something on those lines to consume it. Neither here nor there. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And I think, again, to give you an example, I saw an article the other day that if you're a New York Yankee fan and you want to watch every Yankee game this year, guess how many streaming services or how many things you're going to have to sign up for?
Ooh.
At least 3.
Because they're one of the Amazon Prime teams, right?
Right.
What'd you say, Dr. At least 3? Yeah.
At least 3. I can count 3 off the top of my head.
Uh-oh. John's laughing at us.
I'll save you the time. 9.
Wow.
9 different networks.
I didn't realize
really.
That big.
So if you have to buy all of these 9 networks, even if you drop it after the 1 month that a game was on Apple, your Friday night game, whatever, you're still going to spend $875 to watch, over the course of 6 months to watch all of your Yankee games. That's Yes Network. That's everything. So those kinds of things now are starting to make their way out into the marketplace. And I think legislators are looking at it and customers are complaining. And, again, one thing that we loved about the cable bundle, you had everything right where it was at the end of the day. And even if you look at it in the cable bundle, it's $120, heaven help me. YouTube, 3 years ago was $49.99. Guess how much it is today?
It's 90.
$190.
Dr. Loftin knew.
Well, I pay the bill. Okay, I know.
Yeah.
That's a YouTube TV, which is one of my primary sources.
And if you look at streamers, if you have any Netflix, Prime, whatever, every 3 months it goes up another $1.99, or they're trying to get you to that ad-supported tier.
That's what irritates you so much. So right now, I pay for YouTube TV. That's my largest cost right there. But Amazon Prime, I pay for Netflix through my bill for my cell phone.
Yeah.
And I have Disney Plus. So I've got 4 different sources I'm going to right now to watch my sports I want to watch besides the live.
You don't even know you're paying for, at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So it's getting to be a problem, and I think people are starting to look at it. And I think, again, this is where you almost have to police yourself. And some of this, I think, about the NFL is one of these things that are creeping up in there is that they do have the ability. They're the 800-pound gorilla. They can extract whatever dollars they want out of the ecosystem. But I do think at some point, what's the old saying? What is it? Pigs are greedy, hogs get slaughtered, something along those lines. I think that's what they're looking to kind of see what happens out there.
That's the old golden goose problem. How far do you go here to get the egg out of that goose right now?
Yeah,
and you may kill the goose in the process of doing it. What do you got left?
Yeah. And if you're a broadcast network, think about it. The Technics and everybody else saying, hey, if I'm an owner of CBS saying, hey, guys, this is what's happening here. You're cutting into, free over-the-air television. You're making this a very class type of, should community, I mean, all these licenses that you've given everybody, should we have to be paying streamers, or they want the streamers to play under the same set of rules that the broadcast people have to play under? So there are some other governmental, politics going on around here too. But I think it's going to be interesting, the fact now that, okay, if somebody said, hey, NFL, because they have been going through this thing without any issues at all, now might be starting to get some headwinds about, how they should look to address and sell their rights going forward. Again, obviously, the most valuable product in this country from a media consumption standpoint. But even at some point, somebody starts to push back on you, and let's see how that all plays out too.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It was about a month or so ago. There was the talk that in the new deals, it was going to blow all the other pro leagues away.
Yeah,
with the new contract.
I mean, and today they're getting $12 billion a year. The next closest is the NBA at $6 billion. So if you add all the college stuff up together, it's maybe 6 to 7. And so if they want to take that 12 to 16, really out adding any new content, maybe they're switching some games in there, but that's a big, big jump. And
you got real money now, guys. Real money.
Yeah, that's right. Real.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But
so I guess this is a bad
power of live sports, and when you can kind of match all that right, you've got the ability to create some incredible revenue streams.
To the CFP ratings.
Yeah.
Led ESPN, right? The first quarter of this year.
Yeah.
But Jim, it's not just the broadcast and the streaming worlds at all. It's also live sports themselves. When you go to attend a game, what's it going to cost you? I mean, you can't get a reserve seat at the Olsen Field Bluebell Park anymore unless you got lots of points sitting out there. I just paid my football bill, for that for the next season of football. So I'm spending a fair amount of money every year just to be able to go to a live basketball game, football game, soccer game, softball game, baseball, whatever it might be. And then I also pay on top of that to have it at home to be able to watch stuff I can't get to physically. So I'm spending a fair amount of money right now. But live sports, I've had many people tell me I can't afford to renew my season tickets anymore.
This is my fear, guys, is for all of them, that people are just going to say, I'm going to do without. We're not there yet, but I think we're
getting close to that.
I think we're getting close. Okay, you know what? I don't need the game from Brazil to kick off the NFL, and I don't need.
Yeah,
and I think it's the same thing. If you don't get into a building, then when you're just watching on TV, then your fandom goes to whoever you're seeing most.
I'm paying more for this fall. Same 7-game slate I had last year. Okay, so not 8 games this year. It's still 7 games. We're still not playing 8 games here. Okay, yet.
Yeah.
The price has still gone up.
Right.
That's difficult.
And you guys make a very good point. And I think again, most of you look at new facilities being built. All right, venues where you will watch live sporting events play, they're getting smaller and smaller. Yeah. They realize for the ultra rich, they can charge whatever they want. Court front yard seats, the suites, the lower the bunker suites. Those, there's going to be demand for that wherever you go. But the rank and file who would buy the seats up in section 300, those are the ones that are going to be kind of pinched on this too. And so I think that's why, again, you're seeing, all these events now, stadiums are really at some point in time are going to become studios, if you will, to create live sports content. Now you want a studio audience in there, and you'd love to have that studio audience pay.
Right.
And again, but you're going to see, I think, situations where it does get, again, there's going to be a certain price point where the average American can't afford to go to games.
Yeah.
Talk to the players, guys, and ask them what it means to have Section 203 at Olsen Field.
Right.
Ask them about that.
Right.
Talk to the guys who play on the field at Kyle. And ask them, what does it mean to have the 12th man there in the stands? 40,000 students there making a lot of racket. Yeah. That's a huge thing, and you really can't reproduce that in a studio exactly.
Right.
And I don't know how we balance this, John. Maybe you can see better than I can see here.
Well,
how do you balance the idea of getting a more concierge experience here to justify the cost of the ticket, and at the same time keep the crowds big enough to be able to generate the kind of things that a player grows up expecting and loving?
And you obviously got to thread the needle, but I do think there's situations like Cuban used to do back in the day for the Mavericks. You may remember this, Andrew, when he would always keep a section of seats available, and whatever fan came was the zaniest, loudest, craziest. Okay, you get in free. So you would take those people in, and that becomes your crazy crowd that they put even the Spurs now have the section that Wembanyama put together out there. I think you've been to a game recently, but built off after the European soccer where these guys are chanting all game long.
Yeah.
So they're creating some of those things that will add to that studio experience, but there will be enough fans that we can afford or want to be in that kind of environment to go to those types of things. So, they'll continue to bring people in, but they're going to want to bring people in again who hopefully can impact that and give you that home field advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. But don't solve the problem, because then we don't have another episode next time we get together.
Think though about the people competing for a spot next to you, Andrew Monaco. You can invite somebody to sit by you.
Can I charge them?
Field or at Holston Field, and think of the revenue you could generate, not for you, but for your.
So I can pay my cable bill, right? So pleasure, guys. Always wonderful being with you. Thank you, Dr. Loftin. Thank you, John. Our thanks to Jason Barber as well as Holistic Planning. Welcome. Glad that you're aboard. Nick Savage is the producer of our episode, as he is always, and I'm Andrew Monaco. We thank you so much for joining us and following the money, and we'll see you next time.